Okay, now we can start getting things set up for the main mechanics of our track switcher. And so the first thing we need to do is kind of set up the tracks. Now this, I just have a kind of simple launcher set up here for demonstration purposes, but this line would normally be coming out of the departure zone from your station. So you can imagine that this is the departure zone of your station, and then the line of tracks will run out of here. The length between the departure zone and the track changing system doesn't really matter. I just kind of set it up this way arbitrarily, so that length doesn't matter. However, when we do get to the tracks, we do need to set these up kind of in a particular way. So here we basically want an intersection at each point where our tracks branch off, of course, and you probably want to have at least 2 blocks separating your different intersections. You could certainly have more, but 2 is definitely going to help you out with the redstone wiring later on. The other thing I want to point out is that based on the southwest rule, the default orientation of your tracks may not be like they are here. However, this is the proper orientation that we want. But if your tracks are reversed, so instead of allowing your minecart to pass freely over them like this, it is instead diverting things off to the particular track by default. You may need to drop in an inverter just by placing some redstone and a torch, and just your standard inverter here. However, as I say, this is the default configuration we want, where an incoming minecart with no power going to the intersection will continue on and skip each intersection, and that will probably become a little more apparent as we continue. But from here, we can go ahead and start doing our redstone. So we're actually going to start with track 2. Track 1 is sort of a special case, so we'll get to that in a minute. But we're going to start counting out our 15 blocks of redstone from track 2. So here's block number 1, 2, 3, and then we'll just continue on to 15. So it's 4. So this should be 15 unless I've miscounted. And then actually I'm going to back up 1 block. So I'm going to destroy block 15. And then we're going to build a little bridge right here. And then now block 15 will be the first block in this little bridge right here. And the reason we're building a bridge is if we run redstone directly next to each other like this, you can see it'll join up, and we certainly do not want that. So what we're going to do instead is build a bridge and then dig a pit right next to the bridge. And then we'll be able to run our redstone 1 horizontal block separating them, but we have 2 vertical blocks separating them so they won't join up. And then after that, we'll need to just build 1 more bridge and then connect that up with redstone. So this will be the input from track 2. This down in the pit will be the input from track 3. And then this is track 4 on the other end. Now, since this is the absolute limit of our redstone, this is block 15, what we'll need to do is drop in a repeater on each of them so we can continue our redstone power to the RS NOR latches that will actually control the track switches themselves. So in a similar manner on the other end, our outputs from this little set of bridges and pits won't be able to run right next to each other, as you can see they'll once again join up. So what we can do is the one in the middle we can just run directly out. The one on either side we can come a couple blocks over like this, so we have room to do our remaining wiring without causing these lines of redstone to join up incorrectly. Now that, I will say, can be the only confusing part about adding additional tracks to this, is kind of configuring your redstone so they're not crossing connections. So I have a setup. There we have 4 possible tracks. Here we have 8 possible tracks, and it's just a slightly different configuration where you got to run the redstone out in sort of a slightly different pattern to get the spacing you need for each particular track. So you can take a look at this in the demo world I'll have available. But from here, what we can do is go ahead and add RS NOR latches for each of our tracks. So the first one will be the RS NOR latch for track number 2. And I'm using a slightly different design of RS NOR latch from the one I normally use. The reason we're going to use this one is it's only 1 block wide as opposed to 2 or 3 in some of the other designs. So it'll make us a little easier to kind of get the spacing correct in our redstone wiring. So what we're going to do is place a torch on, well, first we'll build kind of a little 3-block L shape right here, upside down L shape. Then we'll place a torch on the front of the bottom block right here. We'll add 2 pieces of redstone across the top, and then a torch on the back, just like that. And then we can just continue on from there, building our other ones. So there's the first one. And then go ahead and rebuild it. And then join up our input line again. And the reason I'm breaking this is sometimes when you're first building this design, it can be a little buggy. So it helps if you kind of destroy your input line and then go back and add it in once you've built the thing. So there we go. Okay, so there are our 3 RS NOR latches. So track 2, track 3, and track 4. And from here, we can just run the output directly to our intersections on our track pieces. And since this is by default an active output on our RS NOR latch, we will swap this track piece back to its configuration where it'll be redirecting carts to the particular track, which is the way we want it. So finish that out for all of these. Okay, so now we have basically built our RS NOR latches, and they should be able to be set by our buttons. So I'm going to go ahead and press the track 2 button. And you can see that that came down here and set only the first track 2 RS NOR latch and not the other 2. However, currently we do not have a way of resetting our RS NOR latches. We can set it in a particular configuration, but we can't reset it. So what we're going to need to do is run a reset line that'll allow us to kind of put these all back in their default state. And we want to have them all reset at once. So what we can do is join up the reset lines, which is just the redstone that runs across the top right here. So we can just kind of build a bridge between each of them, and that will allow us to run a single reset line that'll reset all 3 of our RS NOR latches. However, when we come up here and start connecting up our reset line, you can see when the track 2 button has been pressed, that will turn out this power on the top here. However, the remaining RS NOR latches are in their default state, which has a powered redstone across the top. So if we just connect these up directly, then the power is going to flow back from the second RS NOR latch and instantly reset our first RS NOR latch, just like that. And that is not what we want. So the way we can prevent that is just by dropping in a repeater right here. And repeaters will only be affected by current that's coming in the back of the repeater. So this line of redstone will no longer be affecting this first RS NOR latch, and in a similar fashion, the third RS NOR latch will no longer be affecting the second RS NOR latch. So we can just finish this out right here. And so now we have a reset line. And so anytime we want to reset things, we can just supply power to this line and it'll reset all 3 of our RS NOR latches. Now if we come down here and take a look at things, by default when all of the RS NOR latches are in their default state, which they are in currently, then you'll see that the tracks are in a position where it will automatically redirect things to track 1. So track 1 currently is sort of the default state of our system. And so that is what we want. So whenever track 1's button is pressed, we want to reset all of the RS NOR latches to sort of their default state. So that's just simply a matter of running a line of redstone from the track 1 button to our reset line. So we can do that. And you'll notice that this joined up to the existing line we already had going to the set function of our RS NOR latches. And that's deliberate, and we will get into that in just a moment. So from here, I can just run redstone over. And we will probably need a repeater in there somewhere, so I'll go ahead and drop one in. And so now track 1 is functioning as a reset. So if I set track 2, you can see the torch changes right there. But when I come and set track 1, then that will swap things back to, oops. That will swap things. So when I press track 1, that will reset the RS NOR latches back to their default positions. So we are almost done here. However, currently we already said that we don't want to have a reset button. So currently track 1 is acting just as a reset button. But what we want is for when any of the tracks are pressed to reset all our RS NOR latches to their default state first, and then go back and set them to the proper configuration. That way we get the proper track set regardless of the if a previous track has already been selected. So the way we can do that is we've already joined up our reset line to our set line right here. And so whenever track 2 is pressed, it's also going to flow back and reset things. So currently that's happening pretty much simultaneously with the set function, which can lead to some kind of erratic behavior. But what we want is the reset signal to come through first, and then the set signal to come down here and set things to the proper configuration after a small delay. And delays are done just by redstone repeaters, which luckily we already have here as part of our bridges. So we can go ahead and set the redstone repeaters we already have to their longest delay. And that will allow the reset signal to come through first, set things back to their default position, then after a slight delay the set signal will come through and set things to the configuration that we want. So that should basically be done at this point. And now we can go through and we'll press track 3. So the first thing that happens is the reset signal goes through, resets everything to its default position, then comes through and sets the configuration of our RS NOR latches that corresponds to track 3. However, if we go back and set track 2, that will reset things first, and then after the delay, we'll set things to the track 2 configuration. So now we can test it out. Let's go ahead and let's say track 3 right here. And so we skip over and end up at track 3. However, if we set the track 1 state, that will turn off or put all our RS NOR latches in the default position, which will correspond to track 1. Now, kind of the final kind of edge case here is track 4. When we press the track 4 situation, or press the track 4 button and put our RS NOR latches in the track 4 configuration, then we will come down here, we will skip all of the intersections and then just go to track 4, which is what we want. So in track 4, the output from all the RS NOR latches is turned off. So that is basically it. It should be pretty straightforward. I think this is a lot less confusing than a lot of the redstone design for track switchers. And so if you have any questions or comments, please let me know. And if you want to check it out, download the save file, which I will have available in the video description. Thanks a lot for watching.